this meeting to order at 3 o'clock. Roll call, I already took the screenshot. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
All right, well, the agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the old minutes?
Motion to approve the old minutes.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. Any discretionary account expenses? I don't think there would be any, but just in case, raise your hand, please, if there are any. Any discretionary account expenses? No, I don't think so. Okay, campus community affairs.
Hello everyone. So we did a lot last committee meeting. We finalized the questions for the poll, so it's pretty much ready. We will send it out during the campus current section that the university sends out to students weekly. So keep an eye on it. We will also encourage you to help us promote this survey because it's on remote learning, and much of the data that we are going to gather will be useful for us as senators, for us to write legislation and present it to administration. And we also passed 3 legislations, and we're going to talk about 2 of them here at GA. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Velasquez. We'll go on to budget and finance.
So we met last week and went over the new budgeting software. So
This is got emails.
everyone on the committee is familiar with that now. If anyone else is curious and wants to take a look at it, I'm more than happy to meet with you and show it to you. There was also a faculty council between our last GA and this one, and the most relevant thing that happened, a lot of stuff happened. So if you want to hear all about it, like, feel free to reach out to me outside the meeting, because I know we have a packed agenda. But the most relevant thing that happened was the pass-fail deadline was adjusted so that it is the week before the last day of classes. And the withdrawal deadline, I think, is remaining on the last day of classes, much like last semester. But that's it. Let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Chair Bates. Again, I want to note, so for people who are new here, if you want to speak, raise your hand. There's an element there in the participants tab, and then also please make sure you are muted if you're not speaking. I'll go in and mute people, but it would be helpful if I don't have to do that. So please make sure if you're not speaking to me yourself. We will move on to student events and organizations report.
Hi everyone. Very excited to be here. Not too much to report on SEOC. Just getting some work done with new club applications and really working out our bylaws and maybe updating the funding matrix. So stay tuned for updates in regards to that. And then make sure, I know Farine will be pushing this, but make sure you vote for special elections so we can get all of our Senate seats filled. It's a very exciting time. So we want to make sure we get all of those votes in so that way we can get the new Senate inaugurated. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Falcon. So we'll move on to officer reports. President report.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I apologize for not attending the last GA. I had to attend to a family emergency, but it's great to see everyone here. I'm excited to see what everyone will do. So a couple of updates from my end. So last week, I believe last week was National Voter Registration, was National Voter Registration Day. We worked with the Vote Coalition, collaborating with the UMB NAACP, UMB College Dems, Democrats College, Republicans, as well as the Office of Student Leadership and Community Engagement, and the Office of Off-Campus Living, Housing and Living. And we helped assist MassPIRG in kind of this day-long event of just pushing voter turnout and why it's important to go and vote. Towards the end of the day, they had done a pretty engaging event from what I heard about why people vote. And so we're hoping to just continue that momentum as the elections come up. We had also taken some time to meet with MassPIRG individually to kind of discuss what their other plans are throughout the semester. Their main priority is to focus on voter turnout and just, again, that getting as many students registered to vote as possible. But some other initiatives that they are focusing on is affordable textbooks and other things like that. In addition to that, the Provost Search Committee, there's a couple of updates with that. We're moving into our final decision making. I have another meeting tomorrow where I'll be touching base with that committee and kind of transitioning into who the final finalists are for who we want to kind of consider in entering Provost Emily McDermott's position. And so I'll keep you all updated with that. I'm also doing my best to try and see what we can do to create this new committee called the Student Success Advisory Committee, which kind of brings together different student peer mentors, peer advisors from across the university with from different colleges to kind of get a more centralized student input and what student challenges and student experiences are in the academic setting. We're finalizing our cabinet. I know that there was a big discussion last GA with what that looked like, so I'd be happy to answer any questions in that. On that end, we met with the student engagement access team to kind of help kind of finalize plans in their launch. I know that this was something I believe we had brought it up before, but this is an initiative to help kind of engage the student community in campus climate conversations and kind of hold other offices accountable in addressing the different campus climate issues, whether that's racial issues or other other things that are concerning students right now. Let's see. Leadership Council. So we had met with the Leadership Council for the first time. This is a board that is kind of governed under Vice Chancellor Gail DeSabatino. And we kind of that was our first meeting on Monday, just to kind of introduce ourselves with other student leaders across the campus. You have student leaders from recreation, athletics, the student centers. And so we're excited to see what work we'll be doing there. That is all I have to report.
Thank you, President Javier. Vice President report.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. So a few more things to report. We are working with some folks who are on a committee to push for Indigenous Peoples Day as well as Indigenous Peoples Week. So from what I've learned so far, we are hopeful to be included in it, but also maybe not, depending on kind of what their 3-day agenda will look like. We're currently in contact with them, so we'll let y'all know if there's something that the undergraduate student government can take a part of. We are also working with the Graduate Employee Organization for a restorative justice committee, and we're speaking with them to kind of bridge the gap between graduate students who are involved and passionate about such work, as well as the undergraduate students, and kind of just bridging that gap and getting more communication between the undergrad and graduate students. The Fall Planning Committee is currently at a halt, but we are working on a proposal for a space on campus. As I have mentioned, we are moving forward with that proposal, basing our model off of the current classes that are there. For any classes that are abutting labs, if a lab was at 12 and then their class was at 11 a.m., that student could stay in a certain part of the Wheatley building and take their course and then go directly to that lab if it was on campus that week. And we also participated in Vote Big, which definitely our officers in Big can definitely speak on that. But it was a great opportunity to just meet different professors and different students across the greater Boston area, colleges and universities, to hear different professors speaking on voter suppression and just to really unite together as college students to really push out for new students to register to vote, and for those who are currently registered to make sure that their registration is valid and up to date and that they can indeed vote. That is all from me. All to report.
Thank you, Vice President Pereira. So speaker report, my report. I want to mention that I reached out to all the incumbent senators yesterday regarding the times that you are available. Please make sure to send those to me by Friday at midnight, because I would like to schedule a one-on-one call with you guys just to catch up and then make sure you have a set idea for what you want your senator projects to be, and then also just to make sure to listen to any recommendations you have and stuff like that. To potential senator elects that are on the call right now, welcome. I know this may seem kind of daunting because we're kind of using new lingo and stuff like that, but you'll get used to it. And also, senators, please vote on special elections so that new senators can come in, and yeah, and then also let me know if you have any questions or anything like that. That's all I have to report, and we will move on to the Vice Speaker report.
Hey everyone, not much to report, just that the YouTube channel is up and the last GA is posted, so if you want to check it out, the account is Undergraduate Student Government UMB, and that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Haji. Student Trustee report.
Everyone, so last week we had our admin finance and full board meeting. In that meeting, in admin finance primarily, we talked more about the UMass's as a system-wide, its financial stability, and then just talked about in greater length of what's going on financially within the state and federally. Right now, we are obviously still waiting for a budget from the State House. We're working on a 1/12 budget, and we're expecting something to come through within the next few weeks. But it is expected that higher ed in general and UMass would be seeing about 10% cut in funding, which President Meehan says that, you know, if we're getting a 10% cut, in reality, it's going to more look like a 20% cut at the end of the day. And, you know, the student trustees and all the other trustees and, you know, staff from the president's office were tirelessly lobbying the State House to, you know, level fund UMass and higher ed, because they've already made that commitment for K-12, that the state is going to level fund K-12 throughout. So we're hoping they can make the same commitment as they did. As well, last week, the other student trustees and myself, we put out a joint statement about voting for, you know, just in celebration of National Registration for Voting Day. And as well, we're also planning to do a sort of system-wide event in regards to voting. That's going to come a little bit later in the month, and I can give you more details as we continue planning that. And then yesterday I was, like President Javier said, we were at a leadership council meeting. That was the first of our semester. So it was great to meet the new student leaders that are on the board and kind of get to know them and how we're going to work better this year. And then later today, I have an alumni board meeting, and following that, we'll be speaking at a UMass admissions event that the 5 campuses are holding later today. And then one last thing I just want to quickly mention is that when I talked about our financial stability, there's a lot that goes into it, and I don't want to take up a lot of time here, but if anyone has any questions, you know, you might be hearing things like, you know, why can't UMass use its reserves? Why we can't use this and that? I encourage you to please reach out to me separately, and I, you know, gladly set up a meeting with you and kind of talk through it all. It's just a lot of details that don't really translate over from when we have our board meetings to when, you know, students and other interested parties within UMass, you know, they see that they think we're able to use these things, but in reality we can't, because it further hurt us more. But again, if you have any questions, you know, we can take that offline and we can set up a separate meeting. But other than that, that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Trustee Patel. We'll move on to the Chief Justice report, but I believe John told me he had a lab, so we will. Oh yeah, Justice Klavich is on here, so you can go. Sorry about that.
Hi everyone. So as of now, we have nothing to report, but yeah.
Thank you. Now we will move on to Senator reports. Please raise your hand so that I can call on you. Any senators have anything to report? Okay, seeing no hands raised, we will move on. We don't have any old business. We'll move on straight to new business. So I asked that everyone bring up CSB 2020 F002, which is a legislation that I sent out to you. So the second legislation, and I will hand it over to Chair Velasquez, Chair Velasquez, Senator Cohen-Odiaga, and Senator Roberson, who have written this legislation.
Are you guys able to see my screen?
No, it's current. Yeah, we can see it now.
All right. I'm going to be presenting 002 on behalf of the committee. Thank you, Chair Velasquez and Speaker Khan. This piece of legislation, CSB 2020-F002, it is meant to ensure that everybody in USG, regardless of their position, is equitably and equally trained and prepared to exercise their duties. Senator Roberson and I noticed that the language in the bylaws does not require every single USG official to take the proficiency exam that we all took at the beginning of the year or at the beginning of our time as senators to become senators. So, and I do have an amendment. I'm going to read the original text and then I'll throw the amendment that I'm going to propose in the chat real quick. So, the legislation reads, to the Honorable Senate, etc., calling for the undergraduate student government to approve the implementation of a bylaw amendment which would require all officials, elected and otherwise, to take the USG proficiency exam. To accomplish this, the wording located at 2.1 Section 5.0, all elected officials, in addition to officials of the judicial branch, should be replaced with all USG officials. We can go to the next page. Thank you. Whereas the undergraduate student body deserves to have every possible precaution taken in order to ensure their receiving of adequate representation. Whereas fostering an environment of proficient representation requires an equitable distribution of training amongst all representatives. Whereas all individuals involved with the undergraduate student government rightfully influence the legislation and procedures thereof, and as such should be held to the same standards and expectations. Whereas, in order to ensure that all officials adhere to the standards and expectations of the undergraduate student government, and in order to hold all officials accountable for their actions, all officials must be fully aware of such standards and expectations. Whereas, the undergraduate student body most effectively represents, the undergraduate student government, most effectively represents the undergraduate student body when the officials therein work as a team, and the success of a team is dependent on all collaborators having access to shared pools of information and common understanding. Whereas it is imperative that the undergraduate student body has full confidence in all officials of the undergraduate student government, elected or otherwise, can be assured that officials are capable and prepared to exercise their duties, and trusts all officials to act in their interests, in their best interests. Be it resolved that the undergraduate student government of the University of Massachusetts, Boston votes in majority on behalf of the undergraduate student body to approve the implementation of a bylaw amendment which would require all officials to take the USG proficiency exam by replacing the words all elected officials in addition to officials of the judicial branch with all USG officials. An equitable distribution of expectations is made on behalf of the undergraduate student body. Speaker Khan, would you like me to propose the amendment first or take questions first?
I would like you to propose the amendment first because the condition was that the amendment would be in and then we would be voting on.
Okay, so I move to propose two amendments, which I am dropping in the chat now. Amendment 1 changes the first calling for the undergraduate student government section, dropping that in the chat once Zoom comes up. I'm doing all of this on my phone, so please bear with me while I figure this out, chat. Okay, Thank you, esteemed Senate, for bearing with me. So this is Amendment 1. Amendment 2 changes the be it resolved section to read as follows, and I will read them out loud once they are in the chat.
In the interest of time, I'm gonna ask that you don't read it out loud, just like summarize it if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
so,
also for any future legislation, I think you can only just read like the be it resolved place, just in the interest of time.
Okay, got it. Thank you. So Amendment 1, so both of these amendments just clarify the language a little bit and kind of make it more clear where exactly we're editing the bylaws. So the real change is to accomplish this, the first sentence of bylaw 2.1 section 5.0 shall henceforth read, and then the new sentence, as opposed to talking about this language should be replaced with that language. This just makes it clearer and more easy to understand as to what exactly we'd be changing in the bylaws. Anyone with questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yep, so I will open the floor to questions, and then also I want to note that, so Senator Cohen-Arriaga put this amendment forward, so we are going to vote on adding the 2 amendments, and then we will vote on the entire legislation with the amendments in turn. But yes, any questions? Senator McGee?
So just a quick question, I could be wrong, but the exams taken after special elections, so wouldn't we have to change it that it wouldn't be 2 weeks after they are seated, like no more, because we've been seated for almost a month and haven't taken it yet?
So the idea would be to change since it would be changing the legislation as of now, I would turn it over to the Chief Justice to decide how this amendment should affect the 2 weeks after they're seated has always been in the bylaws. That was in the bylaws before this proposed legislation. So I would defer that to the Chief Justice to decide how the exam should be administered. I know with coronavirus, everything's a little bit different, but that is not an edit made in this legislation. That was always in the bylaws before us. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that makes sense. I forgot about that part.
No worries.
And then I also want to know, this is like a very unique semester. So the assumption is after special elections goes through that all senators take the exam. We may move on to Vice President Pereira.
So my question is just who within the USG would this new legislation affect?
So the original bylaw says elected and the judicial branch. And so senators are elected, the judicial branch is in there. The gap, but Senator Roberson and I noticed specifically, is executive cabinet members. However, as USG evolves and changes, there might be other positions that are, added in the future, or other jobs or responsibilities added in the future. And so we want to make sure that regardless of what USG looks like in 10 years and 20 years and 50 years, it's equitable. So right now it would be the executive cabinet that would be newly included under here, but it could be others in the future. Thank you for your question, Vice President.
Senator Sturgeon.
My question is, like you said, this no more than 2 weeks is already in the bylaws. Mm-hmm. So I guess maybe could you clear up to me why exactly it needs to be in this legislation as well?
Oh, the way the legislation works is it's amending a sentence that's already in the bylaws. The reason I put the 2 weeks after it's seated is just so that the amendment to the legislation that I've proposed is to just replace the entire sentence. We didn't want to make changes to the bylaws other than this specific change. Again, because the 2 weeks was already there, we're not trying to change more than one thing. The only thing we're trying to change is the equitable training. So taking out other parts of the bylaws, like the 2 weeks, wasn't the intention. So we want to keep everything else in the bylaws of that particular bylaw the same.
All right, thank you.
President Javier.
Hi, just a quick clarification. If you could just clarify, I'm trying to wrap my head around just adequate representation in one of the statements. Could you just clarify what that looks like?
So when we say adequate representation, what we're talking about is we're not trying to say, oh, this, that something is necessary. We're not trying to necessarily call out a specific problem. The way that Senator Roberson and I explain this in committee, and the way we want to explain it to you, is we see USG as an organization that looks like what it looks like now, but could evolve and change. We want to, this legislation is designed to ensure that the framework of USG is as best as it can, not just for this student body, but for the next one and the next one and the next one. So we want to make sure that we are giving our constituents, the students, the best possible, most excellent, most high quality representation. And the way that we interpret improving that representation, or one way we interpret the improvement, is by making sure that everybody is taking the exam and that everyone understands the bylaws, because that's why we take it. It's open book. We're not, this isn't about how smart you are. This is an open book test. It's meant to get you acquainted with the bylaws, looking through the bylaws and understanding them. We're not trying to say that, there's no judgment on the bylaws. It's just, it's practice. It's practice using and getting acquainted with the bylaws. And that's something that anyone in USG can benefit from. Does that answer your question, Mr. President?
Thank you.
Chair Bates?
Yeah, I'm going to move to vote.
Okay, so the way we're going to do is we're going to vote on, I see there's a motion to vote. Is there a second first?
Second.
Okay, perfect. So what we're going to do is first we're going to vote on adding the amendments to the legislation. So we're going to do it this way. Please raise your hands in the participants tab, and if you can't, just raise your hand in the screen and I will go through the screen. But there's a motion on the floor to add these two, Amendment 1 and Amendment 2. We'll just, in the interest of time, I'm going to put both amendments in the same vote. Those in favor of adding these amendments to this legislation, please raise your hands. All right, in my eyes, this amendment passes. Justice Klepach, do you agree? Okay, this amendment passes. So as amended, the amendment is into this legislation. So now, unless there are any questions, I can open the floor for more questions, or I can look for a motion to move to a vote to vote on this legislation.
Motion to move to a vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so all those in favor of passing CSB 2020 F002, please raise your hands in the participants tab or on the screen. Okay, this amendment passes. I'm going to ask you guys to please keep your hands up so that I can record these. Okay, any those opposed? So the hands are currently raised are those individuals who are opposed to this legislation? Those opposed, please raise your hands. Okay, so this legislation passes. Okay, so now I will ask Chair Velasquez to bring up CSB 2020 F004, and I will also ask I will also ask that you bring up the legislation on your screen so that way you can see it next. And in the interest of time, I ask that the senators presenting on this read the be it resolved place, please.
So, greetings, everyone. You want me to read "Be it resolved" only? Farine?
So just please like present on it, and then instead of reading all the whereas, like you can just read resolve. Just give like a brief summary of it,
Okay.
and then like just the be it resolved area, and then we'll open the floor to debate.
All right. So basically, this bylaw amendment is meant to require all executive cabinet nominees to obtain confirmation for their seats. Again, this is all about being equitable with the way that we operate as a government, and we want to tighten everything up for ourselves and future governments. So let's go down to whereas, go beyond that. You want me to cover the whereas or? Okay. Be it resolved.
Yeah, you can summarize it.
Okay. So in the whereas section, we touch on several different things. Right now, the way that we operate, we try to mirror the way that our actual government operates, and in the actual government, the executive cabinet members do receive confirmation from the Senate. Also, another thing that we wanted to avoid, and again, neither of these bills is solely about the current administration or the current Senate body, or the current makeup of our student government. This is about tightening up loopholes for the future classes as well. So also it is to avoid, to close the door for the future practice, for the unfortunate practice of cronyism. For anyone that is unaware of what that means, that is basically promoting friends for the sake of being friends. Now, that is a serious issue in our government, and I won't go into that, but not student government, I mean the actual government. I won't go into that, but I think it's important that we all learn to recognize practices such as these so that we can help to fight them off in the future in our careers. Another key one that I would like to point out in this whereas section is the fact that the Senate has the power to remove an executive cabinet member. So in a way, we kind of already have the power to control who's there. So in an effort to avoid having to enter a process of removal, how about we ensure from the beginning that one is properly qualified to be an executive cabinet member? So that is kind of the gist of this. There are more whereas, as you can see, and I'm sure we will address more. So be it resolved that the undergraduate student government of the University of Massachusetts, Boston, votes a majority on behalf of the undergraduate student body to approve the implementation of a bylaw amendment requiring all executive cabinet nominees to obtain confirmation of their positions from the sitting Senate. The amendment shall focus on Article 5, Section 1, and Section 5. Shall I put forth the motion for the amendments that I will also add to this?
Yes, because yes,
Okay.
Please put forth the amendment, and then we can open the floor to questions.
Okay, so the amendment is now in the chat. This motion is for adding specific language in about what article and section of the bylaws we are looking at, and what language we would like to add in and replace.
Okay,
I have a
thank you.
question. Where would you
Senator
like me to
Bridges.
add the amendment? That
Say
it's
that-
in the
oh.
chat.
Say that again?
Where would you like me to add the amendment that is on the chat? Is it on the be it resolved section?
Well, it is going to be in both sections actually,
Okay.
but it's going to come right after. Let me see.
Yep.
Can you scroll to the top?
Just while we're figuring this out, I'd just like to point out that this is not retroactive. This is for future cabinet positions, just to clarify that we did talk about it
Yes.
So I just wanted to clear that up if anyone was wondering.
Yes. So this amendment will come right after to approve a bylaw amendment by, and that is when this will begin.
Okay, so I will move on to questions now. I see Senator Tesson first.
Yeah, I just had a question. I see you put in the chat, the third amendment would be confirmation hearing in the General Assembly. And I'm basically wondering how we would have enough adequate information to vote on the candidate that's at question, or the cabinet member that's at question. Because if it's just a simple vote and it's someone that we're seeing for the first time and they're just talking to us for like a minute and then we vote, that could kind of be problematic, as we're not really getting the full view of who that person may be. So how would we get enough information to have an adequate vote on that is my question.
Well, that my friend is a great question, and I think you should probably consider maybe putting forth a legislation to add some type of process for that. But in particular, this is so that they can come in front of the Senate. So maybe you can create a legislation of some sort that would ask that they speak for a minute or something of that nature. I don't know, but this legislation in particular is about confirmation.
I can add on, as the co-author of the bill. Yeah, so we purposely left this open because we don't want, when we want to leave it open. We're adding this process of getting a confirmation hearing, whatever you want to call it. But we can open that up. If the president wants to send the Senate, a little blurb on the person, that's fine. If we want to set the rules for the hearing down the road, the thing that Senator Roberson and I really did with both of these legislations is we only want to really accomplish one thing at a time, right? We don't want to do too much in one bill, because that way we can focus on the individual tasks and we can build out the process. We can create more details in the process, but we want to get things moving. We want to get the ball rolling. We want to put this rule in place so as we go forward, as student government evolves and changes, we can figure out the best, most appropriate way. Because obviously things like nomination hearings or whatever in this semester and this year is going to look totally different from how things will look once the pandemic has passed. We didn't want to set formal rules in the bylaws just because we want to give student government room to evolve and change. We're putting in the framework, but allowing for the process to evolve and change as USG evolves and changes. Does this answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
If I may add one more thing. Sorry, Speaker Khan. I just want to add.
Totally fine. Go ahead.
I want to add one more thing to kind of elaborate on what Leah is saying about our motivation here. I think, and I said this in our last meeting, I think a big thing that Leah and I wanted to do was contribute to the learning environment that we have here. It's a very unique environment. So, we want it to be very simple and straightforward for what we're trying to identify and in a sense, help everyone recognize these things for now and for the future. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that.
Thank you. Trustee Patel?
Yeah, just kind of give a little bit more background, I would say, John. The way the question you propose is a good one. It's very similar to how justices kind of have come through, where the president meets with them once they submit like an interest form or an interest document, whatever you want to call it. And then they meet with them kind of one-on-one with the Chief Justice to kind of get a better idea. So I think the format roughly would follow the same way, where the president in any matter would meet with anyone who wants to fulfill that role in the cabinet. And it's kind of like the first check. And then obviously when we go to appoint a justice, the Senate is able to ask them questions, talk to them, kind of get a little bit more of an idea of who they are. So I think kind of like that initial background would maybe come from when the president is kind of talking to a potential cabinet member or a potential justice. And then obviously after, the Senate can ask further questions and do a little bit more follow-up. But I think, I forget who mentioned it, but sending out like a little message saying that this is potentially someone who's going to be nominated. Here's a little bit more background info. That could always help as well. But yeah.
Vice President Pereira.
So Senator Roberson, you had mentioned how with this legislation, you hope to tighten everything up and tighten up the loopholes in USG. And my question is just how students who are involved in USG and have never been involved in USG, how that might affect them and how you see this legislation tightening up USG to the point of no one outside of the undergraduate student government from feeling welcomed in. So just how you see kind of that wording fitting in with this bill and the mission of USG.
Okay. Well, basically, I don't expect students that are running for, that are maybe chosen to be an executive cabinet to even read this legislation until they're on the student government. This is meant to help us in the sense of ensuring that things aren't uneven, if you will. So if the executive cabinet or if the executive branch of our government can appoint anyone without consideration of the students or without the consideration of the Senate, in a sense, that could do a huge disservice to our student body. And to avoid that, it is essential for us to put in things like requiring a confirmation, because all of the senates were voted in by the student body. So in a sense, if this person is confirmed by the Senate, then that representation is proper at that point. Otherwise, if you are not going through any process and someone is just picking you without any information or anything, it leaves the door open for bad things to occur. And this isn't meant to deter people from applying. Again, like when people apply to be in maybe the cabinet, they shouldn't be getting like a legislation saying, all of these different things that's in this legislation. Talking about cronyism and things of that sort. They could be notified that they will need to be confirmed, but this isn't meant to deter people from applying or coming to the student government.
Speaker Khan, may I tag on to that?
Yes, as a co-author, yes.
Yeah, thank you. Vice President Pereira, I'd like to respectfully challenge the idea that this would significantly deter people from taking interest in student government. To the contrary, I would think, I personally, and I'm not gonna name names, but I have in the previous administration with President Zeno, and I respected that president. I think she did a great job. There were times where I thought that perhaps she was closer to some people than others within USG, and that's fine. That's normal. We're humans. We have friendships. I mean, Speaker Khan and I are very good friends, and we're good friends outside of USG. And our time as chair and vice chair of CCA brought us closer together. But we were friends outside of USG. That's normal. But I feel as though opening up the process, to the contrary, I think that sends the message, like, you don't have to be friends with the president. You don't have to know the vice president. You can know someone on the Senate, or you can just have interest and be like, okay, I can put out the interest form. And by involving the Senate more in the process, that means we as the Senate are empowered to reach out more to people, as opposed to feeling like, oh, you have to go to the president, who you might not know, and students who might not feel comfortable. Because think about it, there's 30 of us, and just by nature of there being more of us, we have a bigger network. We have a bigger circle of people that we can talk to and encourage. And, you know, students might feel more comfortable talking with one of us that they know if they happen to know us and not the president. And we can encourage them. And more to the point, CCA is always looking for ways to increase involvement in student government. And CCA, we are always looking for ways to increase involvement. And Madam Vice President, I would love to hear your ideas. I can't speak for Chair Velasquez, but I would love to hear your ideas of how we can increase involvement in USG. I don't think changing the process to ask that nominees come before the Senate, I don't think that that's going to I don't think that's going to deter improve involvement. In fact, I think it's going to make USG feel more open to people who don't already know the president.
Thank you, Senator Cohen-Odiaga. I want to know, just in the interest of time and also in the interest of us as USG, that this legislation specifically was aimed at being inclusive and just like to keep everything respectful and kind and understanding and polite, just going forward. And everyone has done so well so far, but I just want to make that very clear. President Javier.
Yeah, thank you. My concern is just in response to just Senator Roberson. Just you had mentioned just the an uneven distribution of power. Could you just please clarify on that, and specifically what political power does the cabinet specifically hold within the undergraduate student government?
So the idea here is that if you are within the executive cabinet as a member, even if you don't have voting rights, you're still in such a proximate position that you can influence things. You can influence legislation. And if you are a person that has not been confirmed by senators that have been elected by the people, then you can, now this doesn't mean that you will or this is what will happen, but you can, in effect, misrepresent the population in a large way. So that is really the central portion of that, and that's how power can be swayed in the wrong direction, if you will. And the wrong direction is away from the representation of the people.
Thank you. I'm just trying to still understand what is trying to be accomplished with this legislation. As president of the undergraduate student government, I was elected by the undergraduate student body, and so having that trust from the other undergraduate student body to appoint these cabinet member officials, I would hope that they would have that trust, and similar with this organization, that they would have that trust in that. And that, touching on your point regarding just picking these cabinet officials, Jaylee and I have been undergoing a process of not just simply just picking people. We have made time to sit down and speak with each of our cabinet official representatives to understand what their goals are, what their perspectives are, where they're coming from, and believe that each of their experiences are reflective of the student body and what they bring to campus. And so my only concern with this legislation is that it's building a structure of, and I'm sorry, apologies, Speaker Khan, but just it's potentially a structure of exclusivity for the undergraduate student government, in that it does kind of discourage some other students to be involved, as this may be another barrier for students to face with, rather than just speaking to the president, also being part of the executive cabinet.
President Javier, no one is saying you don't trust.
Wait, one minute, please. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And then additionally, no crossfire.
Okay. So Mr. President, I understand what you're saying, and I respectfully agree with that. I will add that we're not trying to take away any appointing powers here. This is about checks and balances, so you can still appoint people as you see fit. The balance comes in where you put these people in front of the Senate to say, hey, you know, I've done this research. This person is a good person. They have this. They like, you know, they have a solid background in, let's just say, diversity and inclusion. And I think they're very capable. And that is just a part of what we want to ensure is occurring here, not unilateral appointments without consideration of everyone else that's in the government. Now, again, this seems like you may be thinking that this is a personal thing against your actions. When Leah and I noticed this, we went at this to find a loophole. And I think everyone should do that in general, in all of your practices. Finding loopholes is the only thing that we did here. Nothing against what you did or anyone. This is simply to close what could be a detrimental loophole in the future. Not everyone's going to have your good intentions.
May I, Speaker Khan?
Yes, co-author.
I'd like to reaffirm what Senator Roberson said. Nobody is saying that we don't trust any particular person, and we respect that, you know, every person, you know, the president, the vice president, and everyone here, we were elected, and of course we respect that, and of course we trust each other. But this is something that happens in the United States government. You know, presidents who have cabinet nominations, Secretary of Ed, Secretary of State, even like the undersecretary to certain departments, they're confirmed by the Senate. That's a normal process. And it's because it's to create openness and communication and teamwork. It's not to cast doubt on anyone. It's to put everyone on the same page. And there is, at no point did Senator Roberson and I intend to imply that we don't trust any particular person or any particular president, past, present, future, whatever. This is to create the best government possible for now and for the future. And so I apologize if anyone here felt as though this was an implication that we didn't trust anyone here, because we respect and trust everyone in this space. We are proud of our fellow colleagues in USG in all three of our branches. Of course we trust you. This is to give us even more and make us even better.
I just want to, sorry I interrupted you, but in the interest of time, I'm going to call, I see a lot of hands raised, and I want to know, I'm going to try to get to everybody, but please keep it short. And then also potentially, if we want, because there's other things on the agenda, we can table this legislation as well. But I will be calling on senators first and USG official members. So Senator Sturgeon, you may go.
This question is for both Senator Kono-Yaga and Senator Roberson. Shifting away from maybe taking away voting or appointment power from the president, would you not instead say that, in fact, this legislation could help strengthen the way that candidates are chosen? Because not only does it mean that people can not worry about supposed cronyism in the future, but also it guarantees that the entirety of USG has the capability to interview and vet these people to make sure they are the exactly right person for the job.
That's exactly our intention.
Definitely.
And we will move on to Chair Bates, if that answers your question, Senator Sturgeon. Chair Bates.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little lost in the weeds here. All this legislation is essentially doing is implementing an identical procedure to what we do when we appoint justices. So it's not new. It's not like a new procedure at all. Everyone in student government, for the most part, is elected, has to go through some kind of approval process, whether it be being elected by the student body or approved by the Senate. So it's not a lot to ask to be confirmed by the Senate. It's usually not even that contested. When the president appoints someone, it's usually unanimous, to be quite honest. So I don't really see this causing too many problems. I think it's a fine check on the executive power. So I'm going to move to vote.
Second.
Okay, so I see.
Second that we move to vote on the amendment.
Okay, so I see a motion on the floor and I see a second, but I also see questions.
From what I understand, a move to a vote supersedes
Yeah.
Robert's
Yeah,
rules.
so those in favor of adding is the motion to do an amendment, or is the motion to move to, because we have to vote on the amendment, adding the amendments first.
Vote
So,
amendments first, yes.
okay, so those in favor of adding the amendment into this legislation, please raise your hands. And I want to remind everybody that those people who have a vote are senators and chairs. Okay, so I will, those in favor of passing this legislation, please, I mean, sorry, not passing the legislation, adding the amendment in, please raise your hands.
Are we going for approval?
For putting the amendment into the legislation.
Yes, Speaker Khan, I do want to put the amendment in. Sorry.
Okay, so it looks like the amendment passes. I will wait for Justice Klepech to also agree with me. And Vice Speaker Haji also says that it's a majority. So this amendment passes. Those opposed, please lower your hands now. And those opposed on adding the amendment in, please raise your hands.
Green, someone asked about abstention, so you may want to look in the chat.
Mm-hmm. Those opposed, is that hand for for opposing on putting the amendment in? Okay. Any abstentions? All right, so the amendment passes through a majority. So the amendment passes. I can open the floor up for debate again, or I can look for a motion to move to a vote.
Motion to move to a vote.
Seconded.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Those in favor of approving this legislation, CSB 2020 F004, please raise your hands in the participants tab or on the screen. Again, please make sure that senators, chairs, remember who votes. Okay, it looks to be a majority. Justice Klepech, do you also agree? Yes. Yes, so it looks like a majority. Those opposed, so lower your hands now. Those opposed on passing CSB 2020 F004, please raise your hands. Okay, any abstentions? You can send them to me privately or you can raise your hand. Okay, so this legislation passes CSB 2020 F004. I want to note that I was not able to get to any of the questions because the vote did supersede that, so I do apologize for that. But this amendment does pass, and you all have within it your power to write legislation regarding this, anything like that. But yeah, this amendment passes, and it is 3:57 right now. we can move on to the introduction of the executive cabinet, but there's 3 more things on the legislation. President Javier, how long does you think? Like, it's up to you. Do you want we can table this, or we can we'll do it right now?
Well, I was hoping that I would be able to introduce the executive cabinet, and I wouldn't like to be rushed in it, as I would be also just explaining who each of the different positions would hold. So I'm not sure, Shelby or Farine. I guess I can go.
Yes, and then, sorry, I also want to note, senators, if you can stay on, please do stay on. If you can't, I understand, just shoot me an email and I can send you a summary of what happened later. But I do want to get to at least the introduction of the executive cabinet, the Dorchester Bay, and other things that we can table. I'm sorry I interrupted you, President Javier, but go ahead.
Okay. So I'm sure Vice President Pereira had mentioned in the last GA, but there are particularly 12 positions that we kind of made in the executive cabinet. Give me one moment as I just find that in my notes right now. The academic officer, we would like this person to just kind of help be the representative for academic affairs and just kind of bridging that between student affairs and academic affairs. We've appointed Tessa Lyman. She's here right now. Want to give a wave?
Hi.
So we're happy to work with her. We have our accessibility officer. This is our point person for addressing the needs of students with disabilities, both physical and mental, here on campus. In that, we've appointed Earl Williams. I believe he's also here somewhere. Our athletics and recreation officer, we're currently undergoing an interviewing process right now, but we're hoping to finalize that by the next GA, and I'll keep y'all posted with that. Our commuter and off-campus officer as well, we're hoping this person is the point person just representing our commuter population here. And Jaylee, I want to throw it to you real quick just to like speak a little bit more about that.
Yep, so our commuter and off-campus officer would be representing the off-campus apartments such as Harbor Point Peninsula or the nearby Dorchester neighborhood, and the commuter part of that would represent students who drive and take the train to campus, and their job would be to ensure that everything that is going on in the university is also serving that population as well, and that population is being considered when decisions are being made.
Thank you. Our diversity officer, and our diversity officer will help kind of talk about campus climate issues and be in conversations with the Office of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and other conversations that are critical in talking about specifically racial justice issues, and also representing our first generation population, student population here. Our international relations officer, I'll throw it again to Jaylee because I know you want to talk about that too.
So our international relations officer is also a multifaceted position in our cabinet, and they will be representing the international students as well as the immigrant and undocumented students at the university. So they'll be working with Office of Global Programs as well as the Student Immigrant Alliance and other undocumented ally training and such.
Next, we have our residence life officer that we believe we wanted to appoint just to have a particular student representation here in the residence halls, especially now with the pandemic and the different student life that is in the residence halls. We wanted to tap into somebody who would be able to just voice the different concerns and needs that with residents who are living here on campus. Our technology officer, we've also are looking for somebody to just represent students in the capacity of what their needs are in the technological aspect. I know, especially with everything being remote learning and online, we're looking for somebody who is particularly passionate about information technology and knowledgeable in the different software and hardware that the university uses, and the different in order to just continue navigating with students. And we've appointed Ian Candela as our technology officer. He currently works in the Office of Office of New Student and Family Programs as a program assistant. He's very passionate about. He's also an IT major. Very passionate about the work that he has been doing in orientation, just working closely with students, and we're hoping to tap into his passion more and addressing some of the needs students have as well. He actually submitted a report to me just to kind of address y'all too. I can just read that off real quick, pulling that up. So from his words, I've reached out to the IT contacts given to me in order to set up meeting times. The purpose of these meetings are to introduce myself further, establish a professional relationship with the IT staff, converse about potential opportunities to improve the UMass Boston online student experience, and learn about how I can assist their offices going forward. My overarching goals are to assist the development of UMB's online program for COVID. I want student voice to guide my efforts, and I'm thinking about a survey to measure the needs of the student body. More examples and accounts of difficulties we can collect, the better. Accessibility to the issues that students are having, such as no space at home or unreliable internet, and potentially centralizing all of the software that the university uses into one platform so that organizations only use one platform to help students keep track of assignments and class meetings better, which could potentially help lower credit drop rates that Kush had brought up in the last GA. He's currently meeting with the Associate Chief Information Officer, Apurva Mehta, Raymond Laforbe, who is the Vice Chancellor for the Technology and CIO, as well as Mike Lyons, who's the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Client Services for IT. I'll throw it to Jaylee to talk about the last two positions.
So the second to last position is a Police Community Advisory Board representative, and two of them are here. They're both here, Handel Ulysses and Erin Noel. They're both here if y'all want to introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself to USG.
I don't know if you called me to speak. My internet,
Yes.
it's like really bad right now. So I don't know if I'm interrupting anyone, but let me know if you can hear me. I also can try to like reconnect. I'm sorry about that.
No, it's okay, Erin, we hear you.
Okay. Let me see if the video would work. Hi, I'm Erin. I was a senator last semester. I would be doing the role of the police community advocate. I was put on to the role by the president of the NAACP, and I would just be working through it. And I know a lot of people had questions about the bylaws, me knowing everything that's going on, but I did the bylaw test and all that. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I'll be happy to like respond to them. My internet is like horrible today. I'm so sorry about that. Let me know if I need to repeat anything.
You're all set, Erin. Thank you. And Handel. You're here. I know some folks are having some internet issues today due to power. So I'll just continue on, and Handel, if you're there, just let me know. But we also have our Boston Intercollegiate Government delegates, Hadley and Alex, if y'all want to introduce yourselves and just say a little bit about what you're doing with BIG.
Yeah, so most of you guys know me. I was a senator my freshman year, went away last year, and now I'm back. Alex and I are on BIG, which is, as Julie just said, the Boston Intercollegiate Government. Essentially, we work with a bunch of universities in the greater Boston area to kind of represent our students. So we'll be pushing really hard to make sure that UMass Boston gets the representation that it needs and it deserves on issues. I'm sitting on the Government Affairs Committee as well as the Public Relations Committee. So I'll be working with City Hall and trying to do more outreach to get more universities on board with this. It's fairly new, or like it's kind of being brought to the scene, and Alex can kind of go more onto that. But it's, I think, a really awesome committee to make sure that UMass students have representation in the greater Boston area as a whole.
Hi, everyone. My name's Alex. I'll keep it brief. So I'm a senior. I was a senator my sophomore year in USG. I was the president last year. And last year, back in the springtime, I reached out to some of the other colleges, and they said they were restarting big, and that this was an initiative from 2003. And it sort of just, you know, I don't even know the word, withered away. And so now it's back. I'll be serving on the Intercollegiate Affairs Committee, which is basically just about intercollegiate affairs between all the colleges in the group. And I'll be serving as the director of the Governmental Affairs Committee as well. So that's it from me.
Thank you, both of you. And Handel's here, so he can introduce himself now. I'm very excited.
Yes, thank you, Jaylee. Hi, everyone. My name is Handel. Pronouns he, him, his. And I was nominated by President, and I was actually chosen to serve under the Police Committee Advisory Board. And I have a bunch of different hats on campus. So I'm a rising junior nursing student. I'm currently involved in the Diversity Council on campus as well as a co-coordinator in the undergraduate student division, alongside the graduate student division coordinator, Jamila. I'm also involved in other campus-related activities such as the Student Nurses Association. I have some experience with interpersonal skills as it relates to volunteering. I was given the Presidential Volunteer Service Award back in 2017. And I just really enjoy focusing on climate-based issues, finding ways to resolve problems on campus, whether it be virtually, now that our atmosphere calls for that. And I really look up to the work that John Ray's been doing so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing and the Police Advisory Board. So, thank you.
Thank you to all of our officers. I did just want to address Leah's comment for the records. So there in fact is a difference between undocumented and documented students, and the process that they go through within the United States is very, very differently. And we wanted to make sure within our officer that both populations were covered, and that they were both addressed, and that both needs and issues that they face were addressed very separately.
Thank you, President Hoffman, Vice President Pereira. So it's 4:10. I'm going to suggest that we table the Dorchester Bay City Thoughts and Mike Metzer to the next GA, because I do not want to hold anyone any longer. Thank you for senators who stayed on. I really appreciate it. To senators who left, that's perfectly okay too, because you are not obligated to stay after 4 p.m. I want to note that thank you for the debate today. Going forward, please keep it polite and no crossfire as well. And as always, you have that superpower to put legislation forward. So if anything you see needs to be changed, put legislation forward. And I want to note to senators, incumbent senators, email me, tell me what time you are available to meet privately. Senators who came on today who are currently running in special elections, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we will be able to welcome you to the next GA. Can't wait for that to happen. And yeah, I will move on to open forum in case anyone else wants to speak, because we're not just going to adjourn. We'll move on to open forum. So I will look for hands raised, but I will also ask that you keep it short and simple. So anyone for open forum? Senator DePina, I see your hand.
Yes, I wanted to know when can we work with the anti-racist UMass? Like we need to help the students that wanted to be anti-racist, and we need to work on that. So when could we do that?
What was it specific that you wanted to know about?
Anti-racist UMass. Like we need to rebuild UMass so it doesn't because all this racial justice needs like everything that we've been working on about racial justice needs to be addressed, and we need like to fix this, and we need to be a role model of other schools to be the first one, maybe,
Mhm.
So when can we address it?
So, like, if you wanted, we could actually make that your senator project. We could focus on that together, and we can talk separately. Or if you want, you can meet with any of the steering committee. And if you like, there's many ways that we could talk offline regarding that, and you can do like present a presentation to the GA and stuff like that. But there's definitely a lot of avenues that we can go through.
Thank you.
I will move on to Isaiah.
Yeah, I had a question. Thank you, Speaker Khan. I had a question about Senator Robertson's legislation. I just didn't understand. So when he says confirmation, so what exactly does that mean?
So the legislation basically is putting forward the fact that people who were nominated to the executive cabinet by the president should be confirmed by the Senate.
So the Senate would just basically vote and just
On
affirm.
confirming them. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
So that was the legislation.
Thank you so much, Speaker Khan. This was
You're
great.
welcome. Yeah, thank you for coming. Isaiah is one of the potential senator-elect. So, and also a reminder to vote, please. I'm not going to keep anyone on longer. So I am going to adjourn this meeting at 4:13 p.m. Thank you for coming. Send me an email about your times for availability, and thank you for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.
But this meeting is adjourned.